For this episode, I'm gonna be showing with you how I prepared in detail for the board exam and what went wrong the first take and how I refined it the second take. Of course, sobrang juicy nun. Welcome to Mindset Magic with Mika, where we unlock clarity, courage, confidence, creativity, and connections so you can show up as your most expressed, most aligned, most unstoppable self. If you are ready to shift into your main character energy and design a life that feels as good as it looks, you're in the right place. I'm Mika Doria, your interior designer, your mindset magic muse, branding goddess. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm IDR Mika, your brand and interior designer, mindset magic muse, branding goddess, and helping you shift into your main character energy in whatever season you're in. What I have here right now is my watercolor pad where I would do my perspectives practice kasi I'm a watercolor girly. That's the instrument, the medium that most illustrates, represents my signature style the best talaga. So, I chose that. And I've been practicing with watercolor talaga. And next is my sketch pad that I use for sketching illustrations so I can really familiarize myself with it. Muscle memory, get confident in my strokes. And also there was a vision board here manifesting me passing the board exam. So this sketchbook is really just for compiling everything that I was practicing na i-draw for the board exam. And this sketch pad, this watercolor pad is mainly for my perspectives. I don't think I have any more of my other sample perspectives, so I just have this. But this is gonna be plenty. So let's go through this first. So as you can see here, nandito yung aking mga Greek art, Greek vases na I was reviewing for. Really working on my line weights and getting confidence sa forms ko. Believing na when na-understand ko na siya, mas madali rin siyang ma-understand ng iba. That was really how I was doing this. So ayan, yung mga different motifs and the strap work, other design elements per period. And I remember for my second attempt, I started drawing on it, starting sa likod. Talaga. The window treatments, yung different types of curtains and pleats, I also wanted to familiarize myself with that. And more than the board exam, syempre, when we know these terms and jargons as interior designers, mas nag-expand rin yung pwede natin i-specify for our clients and future projects because we know we have foundations for what we're doing. Hindi yung basta lang, di ba? We design intentionally. That's why we are licensed interior designers. And look, I was also practicing yung architectural lettering ko talaga. As you can see here, nandito rin yung different furniture legs, different furniture feet. And ano yung ginamit kong reference? Actually, nagsasearch ako sa Google when I was reviewing and other references that I could find that are credible and try to compile the best of them. So I don't stick with just one resource or reference. I do my best to compile everything, compare it, and to get yung mga essentials from each. So pag may hindi na-cover sa isang reference, I would find it, I would fill in the gap with another reference and resource. I really cross-check my references. This is a sample of when I was practicing yung rendering ko rin. How I do my color scheme, yellow, orange, light gray, light brown. So, as early as by this time, pinapractice ko na rin yung line weights na I would do. The only pens that I would use in making it. Here, di ko natapos. I would also write my specifications here para mas ma-memorize ko and mas ma-familiarize ako sa mga items, mga materials na I wanna use in my design strategy, in my design concept. Those that matter, I also took down yung mga standard heights. Syempre, pag door, alam mo na 2.1 meters yan. Yung height ng switch plate, usually it's 1.2 meters, diba? All those things that you would ideally know agad as an interior designer. Those are the details that also help amplify your design. So as you can see, I didn't just sketch them. I really do my best to make it really close dun sa reference and brush up on my architectural lettering along the way, knowing that the more na confident ako at mabilis ako mag-architectural lettering, marereflect rin yun, mamamanifest ko rin yun, I can perform that way also during my board exam, during the design day. So, kung ano yung pinractice ko na skills, really refined it, polish it, so it can help me boost my momentum and confidence and competence during the board exam. The dimensions, of course, standard dimensions, pati yung pag-compute ng rectangular, circular table, familiarize myself with it. Kasi di ko lang naman ito magagamit sa board exam eh. This is also me brushing up on my skills before I became a professional licensed interior designer. So, it could be that mindset shift rin na at least when I know these fundamentals, I can be better in practicing my interior design profession. Also, yung mga mock exams na I was testing myself on, dito rin nilalagay. Compiled sila lahat. All the specs, design concept, sample of how I would do 2-point perspective also here. This is Champective. Really tried to build my confidence there too. And I'm showing my renders next. This is the style that I did and the rendering materials that I use are really, of course, built heavily, based heavily also on my experience as a design student, interior design student for the past 4 years, diba? Before taking my board exam. So, this is my signature style. And I mentioned this rin sa open forum na when you have your signature style, it's gonna be easier for you to decide kung anong gagamitin mong medium, kung saan ka mas confident, kung ano yung makaka-produce ng visual impact that you are aiming for, considering your design concept and strategy. So, when I was an undergrad, ito na rin yung watercolor pad ko. These are samples of my work. So, as you can see, there's really a style na and an inclination sa kung anong klaseng color scheme yung gagamitin ko. Also, swatch my watercolor. Dapat, I wanted to be really familiar with it para kahit intuitive na lang when I start adjusting, refining yung design presentation ko. And when I was preparing na talaga for my second take, dumating yung time na it would take me like 15 minutes fastest to finish a perspective. That is with line weights. It's also with wash rendering. I really trained myself to be so fast in the perspective para I can spend most of my time drafting because I knew na I really have to brush up on my design part kasi during the first take nga di ko natapos eh. And that was because I took too long in the design concept. I got too much in my head pagdating sa pag-conceptualize ng floor plan. And I couldn't even finish my perspective. Diba? So, every sheet contributes to how much our design presentation will be met. So, if I was lacking some of those parts, if incomplete yung design sheets ko, I can't really expect that I would be able to communicate my design intention well. That's why I brush up on it during the second take while preparing for it. And this is how it would look now. Ito yung mabibilis talagang perspectives. I really did my best to familiarize myself so much with a 2-point perspective. Yun lang yung ginagawa ko kasi for me, yun yung best perspective that could help me communicate my design intent. More of it. So this is my signature style when it comes to architectural lettering and how I do my renders. So that's that. And this was just parang weeks before the board exam. I have another that best represents my style, but I can find it. My advice is to really find your signature style because that's gonna help you build your confidence in taking especially the design part, which makes up 40% of the rating during my time. Not sure if it's gonna change. My board exam watercolor pad and sketchbook, I brought them to my accommodation during the board exam week para meron akong handy na marireview ko to refresh before going to the exam venue. It's not allowed to bring those things, so make sure that you don't bring anything that could be a reviewer or whatever reference going into the exam venue. Just only the essential things that they told you to bring, which is gonna be in the exam guidelines usually release a week or less than a week before the exam. So my essentials then, really just my watercolor pad for practicing my renders, sketches, and this sketch pad for everything board exam related review na notes, the mock board, my mock board answers, my design concept scratch, practicing my sketching, really being confident in my strokes, and just really listing the terms. So it's all in one place and it is here para I can refresh on the things na I would usually put kapag nagko-call outs ako, on the things that I would usually specify or use, the colors that I prefer using in my design. So that helps me really remember it before the actual exam day. So I recommend that you have this also. So that's for today's episode. I hope this helps you with really refining and finding the best way to maximize your strengths, what you are already doing, and to recognize the gaps na if you fill in mo pa so you can further prepare for the board exam. Good luck! Let's talk about what went wrong during my first exam take and how I handled it differently. So, for the first take, actually incomplete yung design sheets ko. And during the first take, I spent a long time on the design concept. I think it took me around 2 hours. Imagine! Which in my second take, 30 minutes ko lang ginawa yung design concept statement, which should be the target anyway. And I spent 2 hours for the first take, just for the design concept, kasi I wanted it to be perfect. So I ended up overthinking and paralyzed by that expectation, and to think na I also didn't prepare beforehand for that design concept. Even though I was used to being pressured to think of the concept na I trained myself on that, during the actual exam, I wasn't able to execute it properly. And I ended up wanting it to be super perfect. Since I didn't prepare a concept beforehand, I wasted time thinking of specs and a specific strategy. And syempre, kada tick ng clock, it gets harder to think. Especially when you know there are design sheets that are waiting for you to be done by you, and you're still not done in that one sheet. So if yun pa lang, if the start pa lang was kinda messy, it really affected how I performed in the design day. And so, incomplete design sheets for the first take. And even if I'm used to and have been practicing 1 point perspective nung nagpe-prepare ako for the first take, I ended up doing a 2 point perspective during the exam itself. Diba, it doesn't make sense. Why practice 1 point perspective for the longest time while preparing if I was gonna use a different one? If I was gonna apply a different strategy come design day? That was me wasting the resources that I could have maximized. Kasi if it was 1 point perspective, I was familiar with it. I know the strategy. I can trust myself and my body to do it by muscle memory. But I didn't. Nag-overthink ako. And again, it was a spiral nga that started from me not having set up my design concept early on. So the ending, I didn't get to finish my design sheets completely, and my elevations were almost blank during the first take. And I say that because even if I finish yung one sheet ng elevations, the other sheet was not. When I say almost blank, as in hindi siya on par with how professionals would do it. And no wonder that I didn't make it yet the first time because I wasn't prepared. If the design exam, if the licensure exam is a measure of how prepared we are as interior designers, never about how great you are as an interior designer, then I wasn't really prepared the first time. So for my first take, was I too slow? Was I overthinking? Was I unprepared? Maybe a combination. I was too slow in the design concept because, as I said nga, nag-overthink ako. I felt unprepared in the elevations part because even if we had design classes, parang nasanay yung body ko na hindi ko siya tinatapos, yung elevations. I'd always skip the elevations. Parang sinabi ko na sa sarili ko na, kaya ko na to gawin during the design day. And I only relied on my undergrad plates experience for the elevations. But of course, knowing is different from actually doing it. And I miss on that execution part. And since I would skip the elevations, I didn't get to practice it and really familiarize myself with it. And add to that, I didn't have the first-hand on-site experience that could compensate for those gaps yet. Okay sana kung kahit di ko natapos ng elevations pero imagine, kunwari, nung first take ko, I had experience na of being in a firm and like being on-site and knowing what's inside the standard construction documents na ginagamit talaga in real life practice. Of course, that would fill in the gap. But I didn't have that. I only had theory talaga nung first take. So, it wasn't strong enough for me during that time to help me navigate talaga the board exam. And some would ask, kapag ba incomplete yung design sheet mo, does that mean na you'd automatically fail? Before my first take, I remember other people, seniors, stories from people saying na they passed even if their sheets were incomplete. And I guess a part of me believed that during the first take. But as you can see, I didn't make it then. And I think that is largely due to my incomplete design sheets. Kasi imagine, if yun nga, if the exam is a test of how prepared you are to be an interior designer, a licensed one, tapos incomplete yung design sheets mo, di ba? Parang it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't measure, it doesn't accurately illustrate na I am ready na to be a licensed interior designer if I can't even finish my design sheet and like fill in the fundamentals that the design documents must have. And I also say that my incomplete design sheets really affected my score because even if I got a high score in all other subjects, my low score in the design exam pulled me down. That was 40%, imagine. Ang laki niya. And it really drastically affected my overall rating and made me fall short of the passing rating. But again, as I said in the part 1, it was okay. Everything is perfect. It had to happen. Everything happens for a reason, all in perfect timing. And that's why I'm here. Let's talk about the second take. Knowing all that data na, knowing myself best as an interior designer that I would be becoming, how did I make sure I completed my plates the second time? For the second take, I made sure that my plates are complete. Talaga, complete. More complete than ever. I even had 2 perspectives, which I remember doing in just under 30-40 minutes. Colored yon with call-outs on. It was ink in pen. And that's because before my second take nga, I really brush up on my drafting and rendering skills. I'd time myself from sketching to rendering the perspective and nakuha ko yung average, which is 15 to 20 minutes per perspective. So knowing that, having a gauge of how much time it would take me to do something allowed me to really manage and budget my time and energy better for the second take. So for the second take, I ended up doing 2 perspectives, fully ink, rendered, and with specs callouts too. And I remember thinking, I'll finish this no matter what. Because I know that I really prepared for it. I really put my heart in preparing it. I really felt proud of myself that time and had this feeling na, of course, I'll pass the exam this time. Of course, I'll become an interior designer now. Like, iba yung feeling na when you really come into it, knowing that you did the best that you can do, versus my first take na, parang, phew, parang energy is really scattered. I didn't know what to focus on. It's really different in the second take. And that's what made it happen. For the best approach for conceptualization, speed drafting, and rendering, let's go with conceptualization first. I prepared just one design concept considering the time pressure. Like, I know others would have a concept bank, and for me, yung concept bank ko, isa lang laman. And it's because I'm really, really confident in that design concept. And alam ko na yun yung best na nag-represent ng signature style ko and would also get me excited when I start communicating that design intent, that design strategy visually, technically. And because of just having one design concept, I memorized the write-up by heart and have been using that design concept even when I was practicing for the design part. So, ganun ako ka-consistent with my strategy then. I made sure na yung concept na ginagamit ko, versatile enough siya to fit whatever design problem and also illustrates my signature style best and also showcases my unique approach to the problem as an interior designer in the making. It's like a plug and play-ish. I just adjusted it based on the design problem. And I only took 30 minutes this time for the design concept, which is a big leap from 2 hours. And it's the first thing I did before proceeding to the other sheets. Like, habang may brain cells pa early in the day, during design day, ginawa ko na talaga yung most taxing for my brain, which is design strategy. That was how I managed my time then. For speed drafting, I really improved my drafting skills by being as fast as I can. And 2-point perspective only. Nag-stick na ako with that because I know already na yun yung pinaka-preferred ko of doing perspectives. So, practice pa lang, puro 2-point na ginagawa ko, and that allowed me to memorize kung ano yung points, kung ano yung size that would help me make this focal point, show this design feature, really that. Para pagdating ko sa design part, alam ko na kung ano yung measurements na gagamitin ko. Kabisado ko na kung anong angle to. Really like, I did my best to really reduce the friction in decision making by banking on my muscle memory because I practice it way before the board exam. For the perspectives and the sheets, all the sheets, I use ink because it's what I'm used to and it looks clean and finished for me. And nag-add rin ako ng legends, ng call-outs, the fundamentals that an interior designer should put in the design document. So if you are working, that would be a great edge for you kasi kabisado mo kung ano yung usually na nakalagay sa floor plan, sa RCP, sa elevations, ano yung mga tinitignan doon, di ba? That will help you really ground your design exam into practice, into what a professional interior designer would do. And when it comes to my pens and pencils, nagstick lang ako with only the line weights that I usually use nung practice ko. So, nagdala lang ako ng mga extra points, extra pens, para if nawalan man ng tinta, I have the backup. Pero yun, even when it comes to my watercolor brushes, I only practice with like 3 to 4 brushes, and those are also the brushes that I use in my actual design exam. So, yung familiarity na yun also reassured me na this is what I practice with. I'm sure that it's gonna help me and support me this time. And as I said nga, since yun na yung na-familiarize ko during the review, and I also ended up emulating that during the design part itself, I got to reduce the time it takes to think and make a decision by making decisions beforehand. Kung ano yung line weights na gagamitin ko, anong pen yung gagamitin ko, anong brushes yung gagamitin ko, anong pencil yung gagamitin ko, all those things. And that meant setting myself up for the actual exam and leveraging muscle memory. So next, let's talk about my best practices for rendering. So actually, I stuck with watercolor, pen and ink, and color pencil kasi I'm used to it and it produces and matches my signature style best. And because of that, I practice with it the most nga. And it's faster for me kasi familiar yung body ko with it eh. And actually, even as an undergrad, watercolor, pen and ink, color pencil yung usually ko ginagamit. So, nileverage ko yung familiarity na yun and really just refined it, which led to my signature style in rendering. And the way I would do it to really maximize my time during the design part is to do the watercolor wash first. And then, detail ko sila with color pencil with the extra time I have. And I made sure to also ink my perspectives, different line weights, and match it nga with my signature style. So, does it have to be fully rendered? Well, for me, yung style ko kasi mostly wash siya eh. And I would just have a focal point kung saan talagang todo render. That's how I would do it. Because if I ended up fully rendering everything, maubos ang oras ko. Kaya nga I got to do two perspectives in 30 to 40 minutes lang, less. Kasi I really focus on bringing out yung design strategy ko in my perspective by rendering the parts, the areas that best represents my design feature. Tapos yung the rest, secondary na lang. If I had time, okay sige, add ako ng more render doon. But otherwise, really, focal point, the rest wash. Next is my best tips for handling time pressure. As I said in part 1, I got an analog gosh and really portioned, manage my time across all subjects. I was affirming to myself every time during the exam, I have plenty of time, I have enough time, and so it is. And that doesn't mean na parang naglalakad na lang ako sa buwan or like wasting my time tutunganga. No, I made every second count knowing na even if I have an abundance of it, I would still do it the fastest that I can. It only meant na sobrang present ko in that moment na I would maximize every second talaga to produce the best that I can. Since I practice lots for the design part 2, I already familiarized myself with how long it takes for me to do the floor plan, the RCP, the specs, the perspective, and since meron akong data na yon, it's easier for me now to estimate how much time I would need during the actual design exam to work on each sheet. So I set a target duration for each sheet based on my performance when I was practicing nga. So that meant 30 minutes lang talaga target ko for my design concept for the write-up. And then for the construction documents, 2 to 3 hours. Tapos for the perspective, 1 hour lang. Like yun lang yung sinet ko. Gusto ko 1 hour lang siya. Colored, called out, everything na. Para I can use the rest of the time to really refine and to fill in the details na would really communicate yung design concept ko. And of course, the most important part, I really made use of my set duration by following through the time block that I set. So kapag 30 minutes lang, 30 minutes lang, I really make sure na, okay, this is the best that I can in under 30 minutes. Tapos babalikan ko na lang. And actually, it pushed me rin to finish the rest of the sheets the best that I can, the fastest that I can, knowing that I want to go back to the other sheet para makompleto ko siya, ma-refine ko pa siya. So that was how I did it. My focus was really to complete the sheets and produce a strong visual impact with my perspective and ma-articulate ko, ma-connect ko yung design concept ko in all the design elements I added, in all the design strategies I mentioned and showed. And remember na, of course, as interior designers, we are visual and we are expected to, of course, be able to communicate our designs even with just one look. So, yung first impression talaga na yun, really, all my practice for the design exam led up also to the moment na gusto ko yung first impression na to, wow, okay. I can see the signature style. I can see how the design concept relates to the strategies used and illustrated here. Really, yung consistency na yun, that was really my push in making sure that I finish the design sheets. The next popular question, pagdating sa specs, do you still need to memorize common material brands? Actually, di na ako nag-memorize ng common material brands kasi in doing my specs sheet, I kept it general and schematic lang. So, hindi na talaga nagmamatter yung material brands for me that time and nakapasa naman ako. And I still made it. What matters most for me that time is whether the material I specified fits the design concept I thought of. Kasi ano naman kung tama yung brand or sobrang fancy ng material but it doesn't really logically connect to my design concept and strategy, it doesn't make sense. So, really made sure na coherent and cohesive lahat, aligned lahat, tahi-tahi lahat. I also familiarize myself with the specs na I'd usually use in my 9 to 5 kasi I'm used to it na nga, I'm familiar with it, and it's easy for me to leverage existing knowledge. Kaya nga ako nag 9 to 5, diba? To serve as a review for my board exam. And the specs was also another thing that I focus on. Since I was already using materials that I'm familiar with in my 9 to 5 for my design sheets, for my design practice, that gave me the confidence na if nagamit ko nga siya in real life practice, then of course, it's more than enough also for the board exam. Kasi ginagamit na siya in real life, di ba? What more evidence do I need? For the specs, when I say general or schematic, I did my specs like 600 by 600 mm ceramic tiles in glossy finish. Ganon. Or like off-white paint in eggshell finish, etc. Schematic lang yung ginawa ko. Like no branded materials included. Di naman sinabi na close specs yung kailangan eh. So, that was me working smart. Of course, after everything, after preparing for the board exam, doing the board exam, taking the board exam, after nun, there's this waiting game that they say, the post-exam. So how do you really handle the results or wait for the results and move forward? I'd like to talk about after my first take, which was dealing with the disappointment. I really had to grieve my results talaga. I gave myself time to grieve my results. I let myself feel the frustration, the sadness, the disappointment. But I decided na this isn't how it ends. Kaya nga 1 month after giving my first take results, I decided na yung 9 to 5 ko is gonna be my review na for the next take. And so it is. And so it served me for the best. I reminded myself na failure doesn't define me. How I respond to it does. And I am a better designer because of that experience. Because I am now a designer who appreciates really her craft, interior design, her profession, instead of just really making it the first time, but like my heart wasn't in it. It was really a realignment, a recalibration for me. It is such a blessing, and I'm forever grateful for that story. After my first take, I started working in the interior design field, not just for my experience and for my review, but to reframe my identity. Knowing na kapag nandun na ako sa energy, frequency of me being a licensed interior designer, now that I can see myself in that profession, my belief in making it is gonna be stronger. Kasi stronger na rin yung anchor ko in really becoming a licensed interior designer. So if you are feeling behind, remember that you are not. Every journey is different, and look at where it got me now. I'm even in this place where I really have this passion project of providing the best resources that we can for the board exam takers through my Mindset Magic with Mika Idles special episodes with my top-notcher friends and pastor friends who are amazing in their own way, and me owning my story, sharing my story, knowing na it can serve you too. So if you are feeling behind, you are not. You're exactly where you are supposed to be. It is the perfect time. After my second take naman, that confidence and trust in myself, when I submitted my sheets, I already knew I passed. And yung difference nun is trust, because that trust was built up by me having genuine desire to be in the field, having that strong intention that this is what I want. And also, showing up for it, na ito talaga yung gusto ko, and so I will do my part. And so, I did the best that I can with my psychology and strategy, and so it paid off. Amen. I approached the second take as if I was already licensed. The exam was just a formality. I shared more about that in my part 1. And I didn't wait for the results feeling anxious. I knew it was done. I knew it was done. Ganun talaga yung shift niya. Imagine kung nung first take after the exam, I was really feeling weird. Parang alam ng body ko na, parang not this time tayo ganon. But for my second take during the waiting game, really not so much of an anxiety. Really just believe na I did the best that I can at that moment, and I am trusting na it was enough. That I am prepared, and made qualified this time. So for anyone feeling unsure, if you are in the middle of the process, keep going. Trust that every step you take is leading you exactly where you are meant to be. Because it is. Everything happening for your highest good. Everything has a reason. Everything all works out for you in the end. So for me, passing the board exam wasn't just about technical skills. It was really about who I became Ren in the process. I stopped overthinking and started preparing strategically, energetically, psychologically. I stopped hoping and started knowing, believing, trusting that it is possible for me, and really refreshed my relationship with the higher powers, with God, angels, the universe, my higher self, because that was my one mistake also when I was doing the first take. I forgot na there are higher powers supporting me, that I am loved, that I have a strong support system in my family, in myself, and in God. And I didn't maximize that. I thought that I was battling it all alone. I thought it was just me in the process. Classic lone wolf. But in my second take, I I allowed myself to be supported. I allowed myself to trust again and to believe, and by faith that I can make it this time. And I stopped fearing failure and started embodying success. So that meant stepping into the identity that I'm shifting into, which is the licensed professional interior designer that I want to be. And this is also the formula into leveling up. Really just ask yourself, if I am already the version of myself who's successful, who's a licensed interior designer, who's XYZ, what would I be doing now? What would I be thinking? How would I be? Because it shifts the way you show up, it shifts the way you behave, it shifts the way you move, and that's gonna be your biggest game changer. And if you are taking the exam soon, you got this. Congrats agad. Good luck. I know that you will be stepping into your main character energy this season. That is my desire for you. And I really hope that the resources that we have for the IDLES special is gonna help you too very much. I hope my journey, my story inspires you to move forward in your own and to create something unique and hopefully maybe pay it forward too when you become a licensed interior designer na. Let's make more licensed interior designers and elevate our profession. If this episode resonated, let me know and drop a comment, subscribe for more mindset magic. Thank you so much and be a blessing to others. Share this to anyone who might need it this season. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode. I hope these insights gave you clarity, courage, confidence, and peace as you prepare for your own board exam journey. And guess what? We're just getting started. I have something special coming up, an entire Italy podcast special where I sit down with recent board passers and top notchers to break down their strategies, mindset shifts, and everything they wish they knew before taking the exam. So if you are serious about passing, make sure to follow Mindset Magic with Mika so you don't miss an episode. We're here to set you up for success. Until next time, trust yourself, take up space, and keep going. You got this. You are the main character of your life. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend or tag me at Mikadaria on Instagram. I'd love to see how you're stepping into your magic. And if you're loving the podcast, please leave a review. It helps more visionaries, achievers, and creatives like you find this space. And as always, let's shift into our main character energy together. Keep shining, keep creating, and I'll see you in the next one.